Hey guys, welcome back to Daniel's Tech World here on YouTube. My name is Daniel Rosehill. This is a YouTube channel which I set up in order to talk about my somewhat fringe niche interest in the world of technology, in addition to my main YouTube channel, which initially covered a lot of tech stuff. Then I realized that the people interested in home networking probably aren't also interested in Turkish coffee and my other interests, so I split these out. I was just having or seeing an interesting conversation on Facebook regarding people speculating about the general sort of growing instability, geopolitical instability maybe is the best way to put it, going on in our planet. And folks were talking about, what they expect in terms of the evolution of the world very broadly in the next couple of years. And somehow the conversation got on to preparedness. And I've done a lot of videos on my main YouTube channel regarding provisioning really reliable home connectivity. And to my great surprise, those videos, that's actually the most popular video on my main YouTube channel, is about something very technical, load balancing on a dual WAN connectivity network, which basically means, in simple terms, you have two internet connections and there's a device, a hardware device called a load balancer, which can split out the internet connectivity. Two different devices on your network. When I was recording that, I really didn't expect anyone to care about it, but I actually get comments like almost every day on that YouTube channel, people asking me to help out with their network problems. And unfortunately, I don't have time to help someone in a different continent figure out, something about this network. But it has been eye-opening to me to see that people are really interested in this topic, or some people are interested. So what I thought I would do in this video is, instead of going into the technical weeds as such, talking about, what kind of cellular router you need, what 4G versus 5G, load balancers, all that stuff, network diagrams, I thought I'd just take a step back and talk about connectivity preparedness and preparedness generally in terms of your internet connection. This is something that's actually kind of quite a big thing in the business world, especially in certain aspects of the business world, but it's not really something that your average home consumer thinks about or puts time into. Now, the example I give of why are there some organizations who take connectivity preparedness super seriously? Well, let's take an emergency call center, right? A dispatch center for a hospital network. Most phone services these days are running not on analog telephone lines, but on VoIP, on phone system over the internet. So if you call up a ambulance dispatch center, someone's having a heart attack, every second matters. You can't have the internet be down for like 5 minutes and the phones aren't working, because people will literally die, right? That's just one example, but there's a lot of examples like that of industries where 99.999, commonly called 5 nines uptime, is actually a requirement, and there's backup systems for literally everything out there. Now, when you go down to the world of your average home internet consumer, they don't really tend to think about this stuff, but it's, to an extent, a pity not to take a leaf from that book, because if you're running a business from home and the various aspects, you being online for business calls with clients, or just generally being online so that you can get work done, that can really be, your livelihood can be at stake. So it's something that people should think about, basically. Now, the guiding principle for preparedness for connectivity is never to have one of anything. And we're going to start with the internet connection, then we're going to talk about a couple of other things. So the very most simple piece of advice for someone looking to get prepare their home connectivity for operations when the internet goes down is that you should have more than one internet connection in your home. Now, most people are not doing that. Most people have one internet connection, and it's a lot. That's the expectation from people selling you internet, is that you'll have one internet connection. So when you start using multiple internet connections, it can get a bit more complicated, but it is doable. The reason really for having more than one internet connection should be pretty self-explanatory, but you want to have your internet set up so that a fault in one infrastructural network doesn't that you've got a backup, basically. So when you're thinking about what forms of connectivity to combine, it's usually a good idea to think in those terms. So you might want to combine, let's say, fiber optic internet, coax internet, and DSL internet, right? So those are like different networks, because you can have, if you had just two DSL providers, there is a chance, if you research the infrastructure, that one provider is reselling connectivity from the same network, right? So if that were the case, you're going to have no backup connectivity, because when network A goes down, network B goes down too. So something classic would be, having a fiber optic internet as your primary network for your home office or home or whatever, and then having a 4G or a 5G line feeding in as backup or failover connectivity. That's a word you'll hear a lot of in the space, failover. It just means that when the primary internet will go down, it'll fail over to the second network. That's achieved by using a couple of pieces of hardware. One of those is, as I mentioned, the load balancing router, or basically any router that has multiple WAN ports. WAN ports are ports where you connect your modem or your router and you put in the internet, and from there you network the rest of the appliances in your house, including potentially access points for delivering Wi-Fi. So in your typical home internet environment, you have a box from the ISP that combines a modem, an access point, and a router. And if we're doing multiple connectivity home internet, we're basically splitting these components apart, because we're going to need two modems, right? One for the first connection, one for the second one. We're going to need some device that's going to manage them. So it's going to have uptime detection, so that when the first one is down, the second one will come up. And finally, if you use Wi-Fi in your home, as most people do these days, you're going to need a device to transmit Wi-Fi. Sometimes the router and the Wi-Fi, you have Wi-Fi routers with multi-WAN, so you can cut down on one device or you can split it up. In my opinion, it's actually much smarter to split up your network, because it allows you to update component by component. So my recommendation would be 2 home internet connections, DSL, plus could be Starlink, could be cellular, 4G, 5G, could be DSL and fiber, doesn't matter, right? That's the point. It's just you're looking for redundancy in terms of those networks. Then get yourself a load balancer or a wired router, VPN router. They'll all kind of work. Just look for something with failover. Companies like TP-Link, Cisco, there's a few others of them, generally can be found in a IT shop. And finally, get an access point, like a TP-Link access point, or access points from another company whose name is slipping me at the moment. I unfortunately didn't prepare notes for this video. That to me is kind of the ultimate network setup, because you have your redundancy and you've got everything split up. You can upgrade. You can take your 4G modem and flip it over to 5G, and you don't need to reconnect the rest of your network. You can just upgrade component by component as, let's say, 5G becomes cheaper. So that's basically connectivity, and all my videos that I did on YouTube that I'm getting questions about are basically just explaining in more detail exactly what to do for all that. Now, the second thing is that you're going to want to have is having power, right? So electricity I'm talking about here. And the second great component of a resilient home network is UPS, an uninterruptible power supply. UPS is just basically a battery. It charges off the mains and it holds a reserve of power. So, when people will talk about, well, couldn't I, if I wanted to have backup internet, what's wrong with just kind of using my phone as a hotspot? And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's the simple way to do it. But what I'm trying to describe is a much more elegant and powerful way of getting that backup connectivity. If that's the kind of easy way to do it, you keep your phone there and you put up a hotspot. But if that's a regular thing, this is going to be a fully automated system that'll do all that automatically. And generally, cellular connections aren't the best. So if you want to do something like fiber and DSL, it's probably going to be a stronger backup connection. So in terms of power, the good thing about a UPS, so I recommend if you have a desktop computer, having one as well. I have one for my desktop and one for my networking cabinet. And for the networking cabinet, the good thing about a UPS, the good thing about stuff like routers, Wi-Fi routers, is that they're typically very low draw devices. So that means your average UPS doesn't have a ton of power, depending on how big it is. It's not like a generator, right? It's not a huge reserve of electricity. But if the router is really only drawing down a trickle, that'll work. And what the UPS will do for your connectivity preparedness is it will keep the router running the network running in the event the power drops to your house. And in the usual case, if power drops to your house, the second the power cuts, the power to the router drops, and of course the network goes down and you lose all your connectivity. So if you're concerned with that, of course, the final thing I would say is you probably need lighting, right? You need something to work on. So I actually have a little light wired into my UPS as well. And between the light, my computer, and the networking cabinet, that means that my home office can survive a power outage for on the computer probably for like an hour, and just running the networking gear could probably go for 24 hours. So there's, a decent amount of time. So that's basically the big picture overview that I've at least as I've tried to give it across of I'm going to call it preparedness connectivity. I don't regard this stuff as being like kind of in the territory of almost crazy prepping, because if you do have these regular outages and your business is predominantly or fully based from home, even, just a 1 hour loss of connectivity at the wrong time can be really kind of catastrophic and can cost you money. So the investment you need to make to get this running, by the way, is not huge. A second internet connection might cost you, perhaps $50 a month. Cellular router might cost you $100. The load balancer is about $100. So your kind of capital upfront cost is something like $200-300 to get the extra hardware needed for this. And the ongoing cost might be in the region of, depending on what you're going for, whether it's cellular backup connectivity or DSL backup connectivity, or even 2 fiber optic lines, might be another $50 to $100 per month. But think of it as an investment in your business. And of course, I forgot the costs of the UPSs themselves. They're not super expensive. So if you're investing in your business and you have that kind of money to spend, I think it's a really worthwhile way to take your home connectivity or your home office connectivity and elevate it to a better standard that's more comparable with the type of advanced networking connectivity that you'd find in businesses. Maybe not quite in emergency dispatch centers, but certainly in well-managed businesses, big business sites. They have multiple connections typically, and that is that. Hope that video is helpful. Thanks for watching, and if you want to get more videos on these tech subjects, consider subscribing to this YouTube channel.